People disrespect you for a simple reason, and that reason has nothing to do with confidence, intelligence, or status. Let's start with something annoying. You wouldn't imagine it. The subtle tone, the superficial disdain, the way people interrupt you, ignore your boundaries, or talk to you in a way they would never talk to anyone else. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no clear turning point. It simply becomes normal. And the more you notice it, the more perplexing it becomes because theoretically you're not weak. You're capable, you're reasonable. You're usually the one trying to keep things calm, fair, and under control. So why does it keep happening? Why do people pressure you in a subtle, indirect way while treating others with caution? Most people look for the answer in the wrong place. They think it's about confidence or charisma or communication skills or self-esteem. Those explanations are comforting. They are also wrong. The real reason people disrespect you is far simpler and far more brutal. Nothing happens when they do. How disrespect actually begins. Disrespect does not start with aggression. It starts with a test, a small one, a slightly inappropriate joke, a request that assumes you'll comply, a boundary crossed just this once, or when a dismissive tone disguised as humor or stress. These moments are designed to be ambiguous, and ambiguity is the trap, because ambiguity forces you to choose between two fears: the fear of being disrespected, the fear of appearing difficult, sensitive, or confrontational. Most people choose the second. They stay silent, they smile, they explain, they rationalize. And in that moment, without realizing it, they answer a question that was never asked out loud. How much does it cost to cross you? When the cost is zero, the experiment succeeds. The invisible hierarchy you live inside. Every social environment has a hierarchy, not a formal one, an unspoken one. It exists in workplaces, friendships, families, and relationships. It is not decided by titles or words, but by behavior. Specifically, how violations are handled. People don't consciously rank others. They observe patterns. Who reacts emotionally? Who explains themselves? Who enforces boundaries? Who lets things slide? Over time, the hierarchy stabilizes, not because people are cruel, but because humans are adaptive. We adjust to systems that reward or punish certain behaviors. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology had a name for it. He wrote that men are quicker to offend one who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared, not because love is weak, but because fear introduces consequence. You were taught that respect comes from reason, from clarity, from good intentions, from fairness. So when someone disrespects you, your instinct is to clarify. You explain your position. You explain how it made you feel. You explain what you expect next time. This feels mature. In power dynamics, it is disastrous. An explanation is not neutral. It is a request. It asks the other person to agree that you deserve respect. And the moment respect requires agreement, it becomes optional. Machiavelli would have considered this a fatal misunderstanding of human nature. People do not grant respect because they understand you. They grant respect because crossing you produces an undesirable outcome. By explaining yourself lowers your position. Every time you over-explain, you send three signals. You are emotionally invested in being accepted. You are open to negotiation. You are uncomfortable enforcing consequences. None of these signals create authority. They create leverage for the other person. This is why chronic explainers are often the most disrespected people in the room. Not because they are wrong, but because they are predictable. Predictability without consequence invites testing. The first violation is the only one that matters. Most people think the problem is repeated disrespect. It isn't. The real damage happens the first time when the violation is tolerated. That moment becomes a precedent, and precedents don't stay isolated. Others notice. Behavior shifts, the tone changes. Disrespect spreads not because people coordinate, but because systems evolve. Machiavelli warned rulers that disorder does not announce itself. It grows quietly from unpunished transgressions. Why kindness without structure fails, kindness is not weakness. Unstructured kindness is. When you are endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving, endlessly understanding, you remove friction from crossing you. You teach others that your boundaries are flexible, and flexible boundaries are eventually ignored. This is why the nicest people often receive the least respect, not because kindness is wrong, but because it lacks enforcement. Machiavelli believed mercy must be controlled. Unchecked mercy creates chaos. Chaos punishes the merciful first. Disrespect is not emotional. It is mechanical. People do not wake up deciding to treat you poorly. They simply adjust to the incentives around them. When a behavior produces no negative outcome, it repeats. When it produces loss, it stops. This is not moral judgment, it is conditioning. And once you understand this, disrespect stops feeling personal. It becomes structural. There is only one thing that permanently ends disrespect, not confidence, not assertiveness training, not communication techniques. A single decisive consequence, applied once. No speech, no warning, no emotional reaction, just loss. Loss of access, loss of privilege, loss of proximity, loss of opportunity. Machiavelli advised that punishment, when necessary, must be swift, certain, and limited. Why? Because repeated punishment creates resentment. Single punishment creates memory. Memory changes behavior. Why this must be done? Calmly. Emotion weakens authority. Anger signals loss of control. Defensiveness signals insecurity. Overreaction invites retaliation. The most powerful consequences are delivered without visible emotion. Not because you don't feel, but because feelings are irrelevant to structure. When consequences calm, it feels final. And finality is what recalibrates behavior. Silence is essential afterward. After enforcing a boundary, most people ruin it by explaining. They justify. They soften. They try to restore comfort. This reopens negotiation. Silence closes it. Silence forces the other person to interpret what just happened. And interpretation creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates caution. Caution creates respect. Machiavelli understood that authority speaks loudest when it does not speak at all. Most people, the fear of being the bad guy, they fail to enforce consequences because they fear social backlash. They fear being seen as cold, as unfair, and as aggressive. But here is the reality. You are already being punished, just quietly, through disrespect, through diminished influence, through eroded boundaries. Choosing not to enforce consequences does not keep peace. It simply shifts the cost onto you. Machiavelli would say this is the worst deal possible, the paradox of power. Here's the paradox most people never accept. The less you chase respect, the more you receive it. The less you explain, the clearer your authority becomes. The fewer chances you give, the more seriously you are taken. Power does not need to announce itself. It needs to be consistent. Why this only needs to happen once? True authority is preventative. Once the system learns that violations carry cost, It self-corrects. You no longer need to threaten. You no longer need to react. You no longer need to explain. People adjust their behavior before crossing you. That is real power. When you stop personalizing disrespect, everything changes. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "What structure allowed this?" You stop reacting emotionally. You stop negotiating boundaries. You stop hoping people will change. You correct the system once. After that, people behave. Not because they like you, not because they understand you, but because they learn clearly what happens if they don't. Now go take your power back.